I was born Abigail Strong on a farm in Setauket. You may have heard of my brother, Selah Strong. Our community was occupied. Before that, the neighbors and landowners here had formed a committee of safety to keep an eye on the loyalists who were spying for the king. There were many members of this committee of safety, including my husband Benjamin, my cousin Abe Woodhull, the Brewsters, Mr. Austin Rowe, Mr. Floyd. But obviously now the committee no longer exists. God bless the king. However, that doesn't mean that it hasn't gone underground.
You realize we did have spies here on the South Shore. Who do you think got the information for the spies on the North Shore?
I'm hoping that when Benjamin takes the stagecoach in again to gather some materials for the tavern into New York City, that I'll be able to accompany him. Of course, there are many checkpoints around the bend and on the way now that we are occupied. They fully check Benjamin's luggage and mine. I am so glad that you came by to visit me, and I hope that you stop by for dinner one evening. Tonight we're actually having a wonderful standing pork pie and also Mary Talmadge's rice pudding.
A year ago, I was very fortunate that I was able to get some recipes. You know who from? Benjamin Talmadge's wife, Mary Floyd.
Here you go, your favorite.
Ah, good wife. Thank you. Madam, this very day, brings some very enlightening news from Setauket. Your brother's wife, who they call Nancy in Setauket, I have been informed that she has been in touch with someone in the regular British Army through her Smith family, who are loyalists. And she's been able to bring your brother some food, and he's surviving on a prison ship.
This makes me very happy, dear husband. What else do you know?
Well, we don't know much else now, but she's working on getting him released. We don't even know if that's a possibility, but it is enlightening news, my dear.
My prayers have been answered.
Hello and welcome to the Old Moriches Inn. It's been called a whole host of names over the years, and more recently it's been known as the Ketcham Inn, managed by the Ketcham Inn Foundation. However, going back in time, this was Ben Haven's tavern during the American Revolution. And Ben Haven's was in time known to be a member of the Spy Ring. He did host some parties here, and those parties became defined within the boundaries of the local press. And that enabled us to have those stories a bit more factual. Occupation of Long Island by the British enabled the British to take over many farmsteads and consume all of the produce and products and goods, and they did that here. However, Ben Haven's, because he stayed with the house and didn't go up to Connecticut like many of the East End families did, he kept an eye on things and was able to keep the building standing, and as a result provided provisions to the British. As Ben Haven's was known as a local fisherman and tavern keeper, he would get to hear the stories of many British who occupied the island, and certainly they would stop at a tavern. Major Andre, who was a spy for the British, was aggressive enough to write and draw up several maps. And one of the maps was a map of Long Island, and he called out significant properties on the map. And B. Havens was one of those significant properties. So that further clarifies that Ben Havens was a figure known during the Revolution.
It's your favorite, Nancy's meat pie.
Oh, thank you, my dear.
I'm going to put these in boiling water. The water is boiling behind me on the hearth. And I am only going to leave them in a few minutes. They have pork. So we took some pork and I cut it into small strips. I cut all the extra fat off, so it's very lean. I put it in a bowl and I seasoned it with pepper, salt, and a little bit of apple. After the pie was cooked, or while I was preparing it, I cut a hole in the top of it. And the reason for that is I had boiled some pig feet earlier in the day. And I made a gravy. I poured the gravy into the hole and it allowed to set. So when we cut this open, it's going to have a gelatin kind of appearance to it. But again, this can be taken, it's fairly solid. During this time period, the crust would not have been eaten. It could be eaten, but it was probably not the most favorite part of the meal. I would not have wasted time about peeling the apple. I would have just cored it and sliced it into small pieces inside the meat mixture. Asparagus being the vegetable, the standing crust with the meat part of the meal, but the blueberries. When I was up at the Litchfield Museum, the recipe that I got from Mary Talmadge, who was a Floyd here on Long Island, was for rice pudding. This is the completed rice pudding from Mary Floyd Talmadge of the South Shore. The pudding was the recipe from the given to us by the Litchfield Museum.
Before Mary was Mary Talmadge, she was Mary Floyd, and the Floyds were our immediate neighbor to the west. Her brother owned 4,700 acres and was a significant player during the American Revolution.
So, dear good wife, while I was out fishmongering, hauling fish, how was your day?
Very vexing. All day I was trying to complete my letter that we spoke about earlier. And I just kept looking out the window, dear husband, and seeing the Tories patrolling back and forth, which made me extremely nervous. But I did finish our letter, and it is ready for you to bring to the tavern keep. Just let him know that there is a spot for concealing.
Okay.
It's getting so precarious to move freely on the South Shore. I
Oh my God.
really worry about your safety traveling from here to the city. Our neighbor has told me that they stop and look at the mill and watch what's happening. And so I am concerned that they may try to take it. Interestingly, his mill is one of only 2 that have not been confiscated.
Well, they won't destroy the mill. They need everything they can get.
But what about you? They're so suspicious. You were just in the newspaper a few weeks ago.
Well, I can handle that. They need all the lumber they can get. They've been using lumber from the mill to ship into New York City for the British regulars. They will not destroy my mill. You can be sure of that.
But if they take it from you, Benjamin, that is really one of our major assets.
Then there's nothing we can do, but they won't destroy it.
They might do it for spite.
True, true. I have some other good news that may be forthcoming,
What is it?
and I'll let you know more tomorrow regarding the matter, the Smith estate.
Okay.
Okay, not far from here in Mastic. This is the letter.
Yes.
Okay, it slips in the binding.
Okay.
So it's hidden, they should not suspect it. Okay? Gotcha.
It was a number of years after the war that we know through the logbook of Jefferson that Jefferson was with Madison and they lodged here at Terry's at the time. And that was about 7 years after the war. And they visited William Floyd, who was our immediate neighbor, and they discussed the problem with pestilence, flies, and they studied the Uncatoog Indian language, which was placed in a trunk. Unfortunately, when they crossed the Potomac, the trunks from this area were lost. So there's very little documentation about that, unfortunately.
Good night from the Ketcham Inn, and may all of our conflicts always be resolved at the end of the day.